All right. It is Friday, November 6th, 3 p.m. And this is another live video here on George's Space Chat. I hope you all can hear me out there. I hope you all can see me. If you'd be so kind, send me a message in the comments. I It is always a little easier to know if you're talking to someone or not. Nevertheless, these are exciting times, people. And as always, I want to express my gratitude to you, all of you, who joined me for this hour plus of me bumbling through various topics. And yeah, are we in it right now or not? I mean, this is fucking crazy. Um, anyway, as always, let me start off. I know you all have better things to do, and there are, uh, Lord knows, there are more important things happening right now. Nevertheless, you chose to be here, and I want to express my gratitude to all of you. Um, so thanks for being here with me. Thanks for tuning in all these weeks, all these months now. I've recently realized that I've been doing this now since pretty much since I believe March 17th or something like that. So it's been a long road, and it will continue to be a long road. And I'll try to keep this going for as long as I have stuff to talk about, and hopefully stuff to share. So having said that, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping as always. I have recently put on the schedule for the live videos in November. Today, we are featuring a great bass player and a good friend of mine by the name of Francisco Centeno. The video is entitled Our Man in Everything because Francisco is our man in everything. And I believe that once we get going, he will join us today. Once we get going, you'll know exactly what I mean. Sadi saying, I see you. What's going on? Joey, I see you. Irio, what's going on? Everybody who's out there, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, let me know you're here. You're always welcome, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here today. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm dedicating this hour to the great Francisco Centeno. Um, it is really my pleasure to have him on today. Um, and then tomorrow, sorry, I'm a little frazzled. Not tomorrow, but next week. I'm gonna be talking. I'm gonna be talking about a subject that's very dear to me, which is called the silence, which I call the silence majority. And what that means is Native American culture in pop music. Um, I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Hopefully, it will enlighten some of you. Hopefully, it will, perhaps add some viewpoints that have not been there before. Um, the week after that, November 20th, it is my great pleasure to have the one, the only, the new cool Hubert Eves the Fourth on these live videos. And everybody who's been watching these videos knows that I've been raving about this player for a very long time. He is the bass player on Erica Badu's live Baduism Live, and I am just thrilled like crazy to have him on here and talk to him. So that's going to be November 20th. And then November 27th, just in time for Thanksgiving, is the second part to the Silenced Majority, which I call Silent No More, which again deals with Native American influence on pop culture and pop music. Um, Silent No More, the rumble, the whoop, the holler. Um, Check this out. Check out these episodes. I think this is going to be very interesting. I think I know this is going to be interesting because I'll be talking about it. So it's of interest to me. So hopefully you all can check in. I think there's part of our culture that has not been talked about enough, and I'm trying to add something to that conversations, add something to that narrative, and perhaps bring some insights to um, an audience. Which, by the way, Georgia's Space Chat is now over 900 people strong. Okay, just so you know, this is incredible. I had never imagined that this would be, such that 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 this would be such that this would have such a reach. I can't even talk when thinking about it. So let me stop bumbling. Anyway, Ruben Rodriguez, how's it going, man? Richard Brown, good to see you here. Marco, good to see you. I Once again, thanks for joining me. I think today's episode or today's live video is going to be very special because the gentleman that I will have on is very special. And I want to take you all back to 2013. I've recounted this story already. I was subbing at a bunch of shows here in New York, subbing on Broadway. And one of these shows was a show called Soul Doctor, and Francisco had the bass chair. Uh, the only reason why I'm telling you this story is because it kind of it's a great example, in my opinion, of of what it means to be in the presence of Francisco Centeno. We all know him. He's a fantastic bass player, or I shouldn't say we all know him because there are many people who don't know about him and who should. Um, but it's 2013, and I am coming in to watch Soul Doctor, the show Soul Doctor, where Francisco is playing bass. The show was playing at Circle in the Square, which is a theater here in New York, a Broadway theater. And for those who don't know, um, with a lot of these theaters, these are old buildings. It's kind of difficult to get cell phone reception in them. Circle in the Square is two, three, four floors underground. So there is hardly any cell phone reception in there. There is also no stage door. Usually, when you're subbing and you go in to watch a show, you wait at the stage door, um, and that's a good meeting point. With Circle in the Square Theater, that's not the case. So I am standing outside. I am texting Francisco. I'm trying to call him. I'm letting him know it is close to. It is our uh, arranged meeting time, which was either 20 minutes, 30 minutes before a downbeat. And for those who do not know, in when you play musical theater, um, downbeat means downbeat. There's nobody is waiting for you. The show will start even if you're there or not. So you cannot possibly be late. All of that is going through my mind as I am waiting for Francisco 20, 30 minutes before the show starts. He is texting me back. The text comes through kind of garbled. I'm trying to call him. He's trying to call me at the same time. I'm running into the theater, running. I'm walking into the theater trying to find him there. While I am doing that, he is walking out of the theater trying to find me outside. We do that spiel a couple times. So by the second, third try, we're both out of breath because there are a lot of stairs involved. And we still haven't found each other. And now it's getting really close to downbeat. Um, Anxiety is high. Okay, we finally meet each other by probably saying, "Stay where you are. I'm coming to you," or the other way around. Um, and we find each other. I throw my stuff somewhere backstage, and we make it up to the base station. It is now perhaps 6, 7 minutes to downbeat, and we're both out of breath, and we both have to sort of at least get our bearings. He has to play a show, mind you. I have to sit make sure that my recorder is up and running, make sure my headphones work, and all of that. Nevertheless, with 5 minutes to spare, Francisco shows me the bass book, and within, I'm gonna say, 15 seconds, the preceding 15 minutes, 20 minutes of mayhem, of not finding each other and time running out, within 15 seconds, within 10 seconds, within 3 seconds, all of that was gone. It was business. It was serious, and it was, as I'm thinking about it, as I'm recounting this story, I'm starting to shake, and the hair on my arms is starting to stand up, because it was that dramatic. Yet within a couple seconds, he managed to take all of the anxiety away, simply by focusing on what needed to be done, on how serious he takes this job, and how important this was, um, at the time. So that's who we're talking about today. Somebody who, without even playing a note, um, has the ability, through his professionalism, through his output, through his sound, to take everything that has been happening to you, up until that moment, take it all away, and say, listen, we're here to do a job, and we're here to work, and nothing else matters right now. Nothing else matters. And that is Francisco Centeno. That is, not to take anything away from all of the music that he's recorded before, from all of the gigs that he's played before. That is barely scratching the surface of, the fact that way back in the 80s, Ashford and Simpson had the hit song Solid. And I heard that in Austria on the radio. And I was thinking to myself, oh, wow, this is, it caught my ear. It just caught my ear. There was just no two ways about it. And I was also thinking that, wow, this is bass. This is synth bass. Um, Fast forward to maybe 3 years ago. I'm now living in Brooklyn. Francisco is a friend of mine. We text each other, and Francisco drops the bomb on me by saying, "Yeah, I played Solid as a Rock. That is live bass with a bunch of effects." Um, to say that the floor opened up under me is an understatement. This might be extremely nerdy or whatever, but that's an incredible feature. Okay. And before I bring Francisco on, I want to just leave you with something that the great Buddy Williams told me when I told him about today's episode live video. Yeah, oh yeah, Francisco, these are Buddy Williams's words. That's some real genius shit right there. Who am I to argue with that? Okay. So without any further ado, I want to bring Francisco on. Let's see if all of this works. All right. What's going on, Francisco? Francisco, do me a favor. Don't look so serious, okay? Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, we can't hear you yet. You have to unmute yourself. Okay.
George?
Yes, I can hear you.
And I can hear you.
Awesome. Francisco Centeno is online. This is
You're
fantastic.
saying a lot of nice things about me. Did you get my check?
No, I haven't gotten anything.
I certainly owe you one. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Okay.
I have not received any type of money for
Okay,
this.
you brought up my friend Buddy. What's he saying now?
Here's what Buddy said, okay? Buddy said, I told him that, listen, I'm going to be talking to Francisco, okay? And these are the words of Buddy Williams. Oh, Francisco, that's some real genius shit right there. That's Buddy Williams. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that, and I don't know anybody who will argue with that. Okay,
Do you know
but
how far back Buddy and I go?
he told me like
We were in high
teen
school together.
exactly teenage
Did
times.
our
Yeah, yeah.
first sessions together. Yeah,
Unbelievable,
with a group called
unbelievable.
Natural Essence.
Incredible,
Yeah,
incredible. Listen, I'm so happy to have you here. I want to thank you seriously from the bottom of my heart that you took the time to do this today. This means the world to me, and I know this means a lot to a lot of people out there who are watching. How do you feel? What's going on with you?
I'm okay.
Yeah,
A little anxious. There are things going on in the country right now,
of
but
course.
I think it's a good opportunity for us to concentrate on our music.
Oh yes, oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. This you said a mouthful right there.
Yeah.
This if there ever was a time to focus and regroup and focus again, this is it. I totally hear you. Listen, let's get into it.
So I'll
I
ask you,
want
what
to
do you want to know?
well, I want to know everything. But before we get started, you sent me a text about how people can watch this. They can get on Georgia's Space Chat,
Yeah,
and just watch it there. So they can watch it on Georgia's Space Chat on Facebook. Um, if they don't see it live right now, they will see it. You know, it's always stored there, and then they can also go if they are not on Facebook, if they don't want to, get on in on all of this,
yeah.
they can also see it on my YouTube channel.
Okay,
Okay.
they all figured it out. We
Yeah.
just
So
punched your name in.
yeah. Georgia
That's it.
Space Chat. They'll
Yeah.
find it right away. It's really easy to do. Let me just see if I have any. Uh, okay,
So
we cool.
you said you have a lot of people watching this now, huh?
Yeah, we got 9 people. At least that's what I see. We got 9 people watching this live. These numbers are not super accurate.
Uh-huh.
So between the live watching and the people who watch it afterwards,
Okay.
just to give you an idea, like the video we did, Broadway Uncovered, right?
Yeah.
That has over 400 views already.
Really?
Yeah, or even more probably. But yeah, these videos tend to get a lot of views because people put it on when they are working out. People put it on when they want some. They this is sort of a
There are way
hang.
too there are way too many bass players. We have to do something about that.
So people dig these videos. That's I guess that's what I'm saying. And people get information out of them, and it's important to me to sort of feature people that I look up to and that I admire, that where I take a lot of motivation and inspiration from. And here you are, so there you go. I want to take us back to and bear with me. I need to paint the picture for the audience. I want to take this back to you're 15 years old,
Right.
okay? And Ashford and Simpson, who are the songwriting team, husband and wife songwriting team, who are working for Motown and
Right.
who have hits under their belts
Many, yeah.
and many hits already under their belts, who have extensive knowledge of what the bass is supposed to sound like simply by having worked with James Jamerson in person, right?
Mhm.
Not that many people have had that opportunity. Ashford and Simpson are picking Francisco Centeno, 15-year-old kid from New York, to be their bass player. What is going through your mind, if you can remember at all?
Uh, how much money am I going to get? No. Well, let me tell you how that kind of happened, right?
Okay, okay,
So I attended the High School of Music and Art
right,
with a lot of people that are, ended up being, well-known musicians. Nat
right,
Adley Jr.,
right,
Buddy Williams, Noel
right,
Pointer.
right.
We were in a band started by actually by a guy who lived in my neighborhood,
Mm,
Rashid Ali.
okay,
Okay, he was a sax player.
right,
Uh, he was in music and art before, even before I was in music and art. He was in music and art as an artist.
right,
but he was a struggling sax player and he loved jazz.
Right.
So he was a neighbor. He'd come by my house, knock on the door, and say,
Right.
Frankie, get your acoustic bass. So I want you to play with me.
Mm.
And I wasn't even really into jazz that much back then.
Okay.
But he would force me to go. We'd go, believe it or not, to Lincoln Center outside because he could get a nice sound with the reverb.
Right.
Of the, and he turned me on to Monk. He turned me on to Coltrane. He turned me on to jazz. When I finally got to music and art, he started a group called Natural Essence.
Right.
Right. So the group was me, Buddy Williams, Nat Adderley Jr.,
Right.
Noel Pointer.
Right.
We started doing a few gigs. We used to rehearse up at Cannonball, Nat Adderley, this trumpet player, which you know. We used to rehearse at his studio called Boogie Woogies on 86th Street.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So we used to rehearse. So Nat's father heard the group and Cannonball finally heard the group. They said, we got to record these guys. These guys are great. You know? So we got a record deal with Fantasy Records to record Natural Essence. Now, subsequently, you know, a lot of musicians would go through this studio. It's a little studio in an apartment building.
Right. Right.
Angela Bofill did demos there.
Right.
Joe Zawinul would go up there. Cannonball would rehearse up there sometimes. Herbie Hancock I got to meet.
Okay. And
of all the people, there was a guy named Dick Monica who was the publicist for Ashford and Simpson.
Wow.
Right. Now, this is all when I'm 15. So Ashford and Simpson wasn't Ashford and Simpson back then. Okay. Valerie had done a solo album on Tamla, and she was able to get a production deal where her and Nick would produce her second solo album.
Right.
You see, so now they're in control of the musicians.
Okay.
So they didn't want to use the regular Motown guys. So Dick Monica, who's a friend of theirs, said, hey, you got to hear these guys, these kids from this high school group, right? And he set up an audition for me, Buddy, and Nat.
Get out of
Went to her townhouse on 70th Street.
Right.
And we got the gig. Jesus. So that's how I broke in. Right. And the funny thing is, I wasn't even playing electric bass back then. I was an upright bass player.
Right.
But I'd been playing guitar since I was 7. Right.
Right. Right.
So you know, the electric bass is just like the last 4 strings of the guitar.
Right. Right. Right.
So I didn't even own a bass. My No Pointer had an EBO bass, Gibson bass.
Right.
That he used to fool around with. I said, I got to borrow your bass for this session because I don't really play the electric bass. So instead of playing it like this, you know, I'm playing it with the thumb.
Right. I
think I would pick guitar pick like this. I played that whole first record like this. Anyway, the rest is history. After that, you know, they would use me on all their other productions. Like if they'd write something for Diana Ross and Marvin Gaye, they'd call me to play on it.
Right.
Or if they wrote something for excuse me, for Smokey Robinson, I would get to play on it. So that's how I got to kind of break into that Motown scene with them. But incredible. Then people got wind of when we did she did a show on PBS called Soul. Soul to Soul. I don't know if you've seen it. You can see it online. This is the first time Nick and Val actually sung together on TV. Okay. Right? The conductor was a guy by the name of Bill Eaton. Okay. Which I highly respect and is responsible for a lot of my career. Bill Eaton became, shortly after that, Aretha Franklin's conductor after she fired Bernard Purdy and that whole band. Right. So he was in a position to hire a new rhythm section. Oh, wow. I got a call from Sam Herman, who's the contractor. Right. Said, Bill wants you to come in for a rehearsal for Aretha. Okay. At this point, I'm 16. The rehearsal was at Atlantic Recording Studios. Okay. And I didn't know it was an audition. I didn't know it was an audition until I saw Anthony Jackson walk out of the room, and I walked in. And I still get chills at remembering seeing Aretha at the piano, just fiddling away singing. Aretha Martin was in the control room. Right. Long story short, I did the audition. Back then, I was playing really busy. If you hear the first 2 albums I did, I was like, I was classically trained. So, my style is almost Baroque. If you hear a lot of the arpeggios and stuff I'm playing.
Right.
And I'll never forget Bill Eaton going up to me and saying, Francisco, you don't have to play everything you know in every song. In other words, you say, settle down, play the bass. Anyway, that's the story how I broke in. Then from there on, I started breaking into a lot of studio work.
That is incredible. That is incredible. That's a story that needs to be told. You know what I mean? I mean that is a story that I understand that it's totally individual to you. And it's your story. So I don't want to take credit for it or anything like that. But this is a story that people need to hear. You know what I mean? And that
it is fascinating. I mean, I wrote on the coattails with these other guys, like I said, Nat Adley Jr. We all know his successes with Luther Vandross and his Buddy Williams. We know. Yes. God rest his soul. No Pointer did some great albums. So it kind of came out of music and art, New York, right place, right time.
Right.
It was a fascinating time to be in.
Right, and this is now. Early 70s, is that correct?
Early 70s, mid 70s.
Okay.
Other interesting turn that took in my career was, so Bill Eaton's now starting to call me for some jingles.
Right.
I'm working with fascinating musicians like, piano player, who am I thinking of?
Richard T.
Richard T, thank you. Richard T. I'm starting to get calls from a lot of the black conductors. Harold Wheeler's calling me to play on dates. I'm working with Melba Moore. So I'm in the black R&B scene, not actually breaking into the white scene yet. Right. So a gentleman by the name of Muggy Klingman,
Okay.
Famous songwriter who wrote stuff for Bette Midler. He owned a recording studio called Secret Sound. He had heard me on that PBS show.
Okay.
Ashton Simpson.
Right.
So I get a call from him 2 or 3 years later. I'm already working with Aretha, right? He says, Bette Midler needs a band. And I'll put your name in.
Right.
So it's funny because Buddy and I got that audition with Bette. Bette was very funny back then. She came into the what's that? Rehearsal studio.
SIR.
SIR, thank you. She came to SIR. She had a few, right? And she goes up and she said, "Who the hell are you? Who do you play with?" I said, "Well, I'm playing with Aretha Franklin." She said, "You're hired." She said, "I got Aretha Franklin's bass player." What ensued after that was a really long tour.
Right.
It was from 75 to 76. She had a platinum album that came out of that tour. 5 months. And when I came back to New York, since I had worked with Bette, now I'm getting the other calls.
Of course.
So that's how I was able to expand.
Of course. People needed to see you, and all of a sudden you were an entity.
Yeah, I wasn't just the black bass player. Now I'm, playing.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. One thing that always, and you gotta excuse me if I sound gushy or if I make you uncomfortable. I don't mean to, right? But
as long as you keep your clothes on, I'm fine.
I'm trying. I mean, to be honest, I look good without my clothes on, but I'm gonna. But we're gonna keep this PG or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So one thing that I always admired about your playing was that there is this I can't really express it in any other way, but there's a sort of a reckless abandonment, right? There is a fearlessness that I very much appreciate, because together with the fearless nature of your playing is this commitment to excellence, right? The commitment to quality. And I was wondering if this is something that you consciously do. Is this something that you worked at, basically to jump off the deep end and know that you're going to land on both feet. Not only are you going to land on both feet, but you're gonna land and continue running, right? Sometimes it seems to me with your playing this, that's kind of the that I get out of it. Let me give you an example, because on the one hand, it sounds so in the pocket, it's always so tight, right? But then on the other hand, there is a sense of, for lack of better description, freedom, right? There's a sense of just openness and spur of the moment, stream of consciousness kind of playing. I was wondering, is that something that you work on, that you have worked on? Is that something that came to you? Like what made that possible?
George, that's a very good question. And if we have the time, the best way I could explain it, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a bass journey.
Right.
Okay, so like I said early on,
yeah.
If you listen to the first records I did, I was playing very melodic, very busy.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of that stems from me having been a guitar player.
Right. Right.
Okay, and not so much understanding conceptually the role of the bass player, which has several roles, which I'm going to explain, depending on the type of music or situation. Right. Another one of my mentors, okay, aside from listening to Jameson and all those records, which is why I also took freedom to play very busy in those early records. I said, yes, these guys are like all over the place, you know.
Right, right.
You know, there's a lot of rhythm, a lot of movement. I, through Noel Pointer, like I said, my friend Noel Pointer, his sister was a stage manager for a show called Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope on Broadway.
Okay.
Right? The bass player for that show was John Lucien. I don't know if you're familiar with John Lucien, the singer.
I heard the name, yeah.
Now this is before they had all the union rules on subbing and all of that.
Right.
Olive says to Noel, do you know any, John needs to take a couple of weeks off. And Noel says, hey, I'll get my friend, get Francisco to come in here and play this. I've never did a Broadway show now. I came in, watched the show. I got the book.
Right.
I cut school. I'd go to Central Park, cut school, because I couldn't do it at home, practice the part, right? Came in and did a couple weeks of it. John really liked my bass playing, and he was in the process of doing an album.
Right.
So I would go out to his house in Queens, right, to learn the music. Now he was an amazing guitar player.
Right.
His finger style was very busy up top, but he played melodic parts with his thumb on the bass, like bing 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 bing.
Right.
So, he taught me, Francisco, you have to learn to play the long tones. All right.
Right.
So this is a very different style that I'm used to.
Right.
So I start playing the long tones and realizing I'm affecting the whole texture of this music by not being busy.
Right.
By letting things on top flourish.
Right.
And just holding the bottom and being almost inconsequential.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
So now I have two techniques that I could deal with.
Right.
When I'm approached with music. Now, as far as some of these records you're talking about with Asher and Simpson, they always gave me a lot of freedom with the bass lines and all that, but I was always kept in mind, maybe I don't want to play too busy here, maybe I just want to play a bass line there.
Right.
But one thing that I've always kept in my heart from playing R&B with Aretha or Asher and Simpson, I remember from listening to early R&B records, the records would always start out at a certain velocity, frequency, or tone. And by the end, everybody was losing their minds.
Right.
If you know what I mean, they would just accelerate. And all of a sudden the bass player is playing licks, or you hear guitar playing licks. And that really stuck with me to such a point where I always figured when I'm playing at least that type of music or disco, whatever, you get in the zone, what I call the zone.
Right. Right.
Where you're melting with the drummer, you're melting everybody's listening to another. And it should, on its own, if everybody is in the zone, feeling the same groove, it should accelerate. Now, I don't mean tempo wise. I mean the fervor, the passion of the music.
Right, right.
So
Right.
that's another thing that I will always look for when I'm playing at least R&B music and that kind of thing.
Right.
You're not going to get that so much in country music.
Right.
And I do love country music. So to answer your question, I walk into a musical situation and I assess about 3 or 4 things. Number one, am I working for an arranger that knows how to write for the bass?
Right.
Like Leon Pendarvis, for example.
Right. Right.
Or with Harold Wheeler. Harold Wheeler had an interesting way of writing for the bass, where he would write a few notes and then slash marks.
Yeah.
In other words, say, okay, this is me and this is going to be you.
Right.
You get it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Pendarvis is also a bass player, would just write the parts out.
Right.
You know, he knows what he wants. And then you go in and there are a lot of people that just write the chords out.
Right.
They want you to come up with the thing. So that's the situation number one. Number two is, what is the vocalist singing? Yeah. Right? Yeah. There are 2 ways to approach that. I always like to go with the singer.
Right. Right.
By that, I mean, try to catch the phrasing, not fight against it. Always listening to the singer is another aspect that I go in.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, what's the mood of the music? The bass has the ability to change the texture of the whole record.
That's true.
You do these long notes and all that, you have a certain kind of feel. You play short notes, and all of a sudden, it's another story.
It's gonna be bumping.
Or you combine the two.
Right, of course.
Right. I've done records where you listen to, doing the verse, I'll play it a certain way, and then I'll totally change the texture.
Yeah.
The chorus.
Yeah.
And that the power of the bass.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hope that answers it.
No,
so when you say, well, what am I thinking?
Right.
I assess the situation. Now, am I going to play this chart?
Right.
Do they want me to make something up?
Right.
I've gotten in a lot of trouble making stuff up.
You and me both.
Especially on Broadway, I get conductors and stuff to come back to me. Why did you add that or add this? But then I, like when I did Hairspray,
right.
Mark Shaman gave us a lot of freedom.
Right.
He would come back sometimes and say, I heard what you were trying to do. It's great in that song, but don't ever do it again. I don't know if you're familiar with the song that Hairspray, the final tune, You Can't Stop the Beat.
Of course. Yeah.
You can't. I remember I was so out of my mind one day that I just held, let's say the keys in C, right?
Right.
I held a G for the whole very Beethoven-esque, Yeah. I didn't move it. I just held a 5 note through the whole thing, while the chords were moving. I was saying, here I am. That was great. Don't ever do it again. You gotta assess the situation.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta read the room. That's exactly. That's, of course, you gotta read the room. And the nice thing about that particular story is also that you're talking to someone like a Mark Shaman who has this background in music, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there is this openness, and there is this taking it all in and being part of a music scene, aside from being part of a theatrical scene, and aside from theater being everything, right? This dude tries to be part of a musical scene, right? He has influences from what's happening on the radio or back in the day, right? Mm-hmm. He has influences that are not solely musical theater, and I think that like what he said to you, and I know that also from Harold Wheeler, because Harold was the orchestrator for Ain't Too Proud, right?
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
So what they appreciate about your input is that they don't have to think about it, right? And they sort of rely on your musicality, on your experience to say the right thing at the right time, right? And that is, that's the job that we are that we need to do pretty much all the time. Roger Squitero says, "What's up?"
Hey, Roger, that's my man.
Yes.
He was an usher at my wedding. That's how far back we go.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Well, listen, there's another thing that I wanted to ask you about, and that is the hit maker, right? The bass, the jazz bass, that's very well known or very much associated with you, which is a black jazz bass, I believe.
Right.
Do you have it nearby?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Because the thing about it is that you did some. Let me just preset the stage here a little bit. A lot of what we do is sound based, right? There's like you need to have a good sound in order to cut through a recording, in order to be heard, in order to add these textures that you were talking about. And in order to do all of that, you need to know your equipment. You need to know, and you need to have good equipment, right? Yeah. So that jazz bass, from what I understand, has played on a lot of albums, right?
Let me go back to that for a second. Yeah. If you go back to the heyday of the recording studio scene in New York, right? I guess it's the 60s, the 70s, right, the 80s. It was like how can I put it? Assembly line music. Right. You came, especially like the Motown records. You come in, you got 3 hours to do 3 songs. Right. If you're doing a jingle, you got an hour to do maybe a 30-second spot. Anyway, my point being is there were certain instruments that were staples at the time. Right. Okay. Engineers didn't have a whole lot of time to mess around with the sound. Yeah. Most people were either using a P bass or a Fender bass. Right. Or a jazz bass. That was it. Right. Either walked in with a Strat or a Telecaster. Right. See what I mean? These were the sounds, they knew how to manipulate them. Right. So I got my 70s Strat. I guess it was either Terminal Music or wherever I bought it. And the only real changes that I was able to enact with the bass was, what strings am I going to use? Right. Okay. So initially it was always flat wounds. Okay. And then the round wound sound came out. There were Rhoda sounds. Right. And you know, Dean Markley, you know. Right. So it was always a matter of either doing the bright sounds or the flat wound sounds. Right. So a lot of the sound depended on how good the engineer was. Right. They knew what they were getting, but they would mostly shape the sound, which is why I was never really like into a lot of different basses, different amps. I wasn't even into amps, never used them. Right. Never used them. All the studios had an Ampeg B15. Right. Which some people used to like to mic along with the direct sound. Right. But I do have that bass here because you requested it. Yes, I did. And Marcus used to use a similar bass. Yeah. Will used to use a jazz bass. You know, I didn't start switching basses till, let's say, back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. People started experimenting with different guitars. Right. EM pickups and, you know, people started getting different. That's when I started switching to, I bought a couple of Sadowski basses back then. Okay. Which had a different sound. Right. But still, the jazz bass is the original. So now, did you modify this one? All I did was I had Sadowski put this thumb rest here. Okay. That's the only thing I ever did. Okay. No other electronic modifications. I did have one prior to this that was stolen. Okay. Where I had put a P pickup here and a bunch of a preamp that Sadowski put in. Had a lot of switches and stuff. That bass was stolen. I never got to use it very much. Got it. But this is the bass I use on most records. And that is still the original bridge. No, this is a badass bridge. Right. Everybody was putting badass bridges on there. Okay. It was like the thing to do back then. Okay. Now, and the instrument itself is passive. Yes. Check that out. It sure is. Okay. So no new pickups. You just have like I said, I had one with all, you know, people started to put, you know, Sadowski put a preamp in, which was kind of noisy at the time. Right. And, but there are excellent basses out now.
Of
with
course, of course.
with preamps, like the exotic bass or the Oliva Coppola that I use.
Yeah. The Oliva Coppola, that I wanted to show that one to the audience as well, because it seemed to me that it's basically what you like about your jazz bass in as a 5-string. Is that correct?
That's an interesting story. Yeah, when I was doing Hairspray,
right,
and I hadn't been playing 5-string that long. I was playing a harpy bass, which I still like. I was playing harpy bass, with electronic bass. But when Mark got the deal to do the movie,
right,
I said, I'm not taking this harpy bass to Canada. I got to get a bass that sounds like a 60s bass.
Right.
So I started going around town, listening to different basses. Oliva Coppola gave me 2 or 3 basses to try out. I took them home, and the one that I finally chose, I A-B'd with my jazz bass. It was very extremely similar. And that's this one here. And even this bass, right? When you see all the electronics on it, well, it's got let me see. It's got a passive knob for the tone. It's got bass and treble boost. You can take, and 2 volumes for the 2 pickups.
Right, of course.
A lot of these basses, most of the time, I end up using passive anyway.
Check that out.
You know,
and the reason being,
they sound great passive.
Right.
You know, and coming from my studio experience, I want to give the engineer or who's ever in charge of the sound a nice, clear sound, and let them adjust the sound according to their room or the record.
Right.
But unless they say, can you give me a little more bottom, and then I'll kick it in. Hey, does your bass have a little more top? You know, in case they can't get over there. I've always used it to the passive thing.
Right. That is, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes life a little easier. You know, there's already so much happening in the signal chain anyway. Why not make it a little easier and just send a good signal, and then have them blow it up, do whatever EQ they need to do to it, or not.
But these things really come in handy though if you're playing live in a club, or in a theater. And you want to adjust personally your sound on stage.
Yeah, of course.
Know, I don't like to have my amps too loud on stage.
Okay.
Number 1, singers hate you.
Yeah.
Number 2, you're gonna ruin your ears.
That's true.
You see where I have this speaker right here?
Right.
Even when I work live, I always put the speaker not on the floor. I have them lifted so it's like a headphone.
Right.
That way I don't have to have it too loud.
Right.
But often enough, I might need to change the sound using my electronics to get it the way I want it to sound on stage.
Of course.
That's why these preamps are good for that.
Yeah. And it's mostly, for you, it's mostly round wounds. Is that correct?
Lately, because of the type of work I've been doing.
Okay.
But I'll tell you a string that I really like, even though it's a silly color. DR makes this round wound string.
Right.
But it has nylon. It's got nylon coating.
Right. I know you had that one at
so you can flap it,
right,
and get the bite. But when you finger it, it's a nice smooth sound. So this is my favorite string now.
Right.
Unless I'm doing something that definitely calls for round wounds. And La Bella makes, because I always hated round wounds because they have so much.
Whoops. Easy.
So much tension, you know. I found a lot of round wounds aren't very flexible.
Yeah. That
but
is.
La Bella makes a low tension round wound.
Oh, check that out.
You have to check it out. That's what I have on the jazz bass. It's a low tension strap. It's really easy to play.
Right.
It's low tension, but it's got a real round wound sound to it.
Right. Oh, that's good to know. That is really good to know. You know, that is you know, coming back to Soul Doctor, and again, like, I'm probably gonna heap praises on you, and you know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but it needs to be said that the show itself, the music was,
yeah.
But what you played on it, and you together with Clint Gannon, who was the drummer of the show, I mean, that was the highlight of my 2013 subbing
Really?
career. Yeah, that was, and I mean, this is, at the time I was subbing at, I forgot how many shows, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. But all of a sudden I have to play that particular show the way you play it, and I'm like, this is
I'm terrible with my subs.
No, you're fantastic.
No,
you think you're terrible. I'm terrible with my subs. Believe me.
At least you stick a little more to the book. A lot of my guys come in and say, "Oh, do I have to play all that?" I said, "No. Look, I said, I play the show different every day, so it doesn't make a difference. They'll just think you're me playing it different."
But having said that, this is a good segue, because the book at the time, I remember you had the book written out, and then you had notes on top of the music saying, "Here, go to tape," which meant that at these measures, play what's on the recording.
Right.
And then and then play the ink, of course, which was, go back to what the book said. And then, there was another note further down, "Here, go to tape," which was your way of saying, play the recording, right?
Which is my way of not having to write it out.
No, you see, I don't even do that. I just say, just play the recording. Don't do anything else. Just, it's like, I don't even do that. But I was so impressed by the level of care that you took, for putting that in there, and that made it. That was sort of the basis why I took it so seriously, and I was like, I gotta do this really well, And then on top of that, there was the language that you were speaking with the bass, and that language was just unmistakable. It was everything that, and this is something that I find with your recordings, that's almost synonymous, in my opinion, with how you play. The language of the bass that you put out is exactly what you imagine it to be. And that, I find, is an interesting feature to get to. Like, how do you get to where your ideas are so clear and your execution of those ideas is so clear? Because if you imagine something, if you imagine a bass line, and then you hear something that Francisco Centeno recorded, it sounds exactly how you would imagine that bass line, how it should sound. How do you get to that point of execution? How do you get to that point of connecting basically your imagination to the instrument and to the output?
I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I thought
so. George, I'll tell you, and it's been a while. Number one, I'm going to try to reconnect to those days.
Right.
There was, at least for me, a lot of session work back there.
Right.
Back then. So my mind was already in tune to a certain method of thinking.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd walk into a session, if Michael Zager, I knew who the producer was, or I knew what kind of music I was going to play.
Right.
I pretty much knew at that time where I had to go.
Right.
What my job was.
Right.
Then at that point, 2 or 3 things were very important. Headphone mix.
Right.
Okay, because now I have to, I'm mostly clicking in with the bass drum and the drummer.
Right.
And guitar player, right? That's that zone, right?
Right.
Hopefully there's somebody singing a vocal track. Right. Right. getting an idea of what the song is, and then it's something that became my DNA to connect with the music and try to fill in what I felt it needed from me.
Right.
Okay. I will admit very often, because when I broke in, like I said, a very melodic player, I'm thinking, okay, one of the things I might have to do here is create a signature part. Maybe I'm being called here because they want me to be Francisco Centeno.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I have to, maybe I'm here to come up with something flashy. They're going to say, he's here. Let's see what he does.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Of course.
But having to do that using all of the philosophies I explained.
Right.
I'm going to use long notes.
Right.
Am I going to play something choppy here?
Right.
Am I going to be in the way?
Right.
Or is this just going to be a bass solo? You see what I mean? So your mind goes through all of this.
Yeah.
And then the bottom line is, once that click track is on and it's moving, where does your heart go?
Right.
It's where's your passion? Where's your feeling?
Right. Right. So being in tune with your passion.
And if you, I could explain all these technical ways of maybe approaching something.
Right.
The bottom line is, am I going to get in the zone? Am I going to love this song? Am I going to play and feel in such a way that I'm going to enjoy this music? You see, so a lot of it comes from, your musical experiences as a child.
Of course.
Like I'm sure you've had. You grew up in a musical family.
Right.
And a lot of what you're playing now and what you experience now came because it was ingrained in you as a child.
Right.
You listening to something, you loved it. You didn't even know why.
Yeah.
I remember being, I don't know, 9, 10 years old, listening to Rita sing Respect or one of her albums and playing or Band of Gold. I remember playing some of these songs over and over again.
Yeah.
And just like becoming part of the music.
Right.
You see what I mean? That connection.
Right.
So when you grow up and you decide to be a musician, you're looking for that connection you had, that you originally had when you experienced music.
Of course.
A lot of it is just like that connection. Once again, like I said, you is this going to fit with the singer? Am I playing too busy here? And then you also get direction from producers. Say, I want a little lick here, put a little slide there.
Well, so
it's a journey. It's been a journey, a combination of things. Even Broadway for me was a journey.
Yeah.
But when I originally got called to do Mr. Miller to allow me to come into a pit, he was reluctant. He says, Frank, I don't know if you want to do this. 8 shows a week, you're going to play the same goddamn thing every day. Not what you do.
Right.
A lot of guys that come from the studio, they do this for a week and they quit.
Right.
Not what they want to do. I said, it's what I want to do. I have a mortgage and I have kids.
Right. Of course.
And the studio works, right?
No, this is totally valid and
so
important.
It's going from musician as a creative rhythm section player to what I call a utilitarian musician.
Right.
Where you become a utility of somebody else's creativity. But even then you want to make it your own.
Yeah.
Say, okay, I want to feel what Mark Shaman's feeling here. I want to feel what Ron Melrose is thinking here.
Right.
I want to get into his brain and play it like who he is.
Right.
It's a different attitude.
Right.
But it's still, you still want to make it real.
Right. Of course.
You just don't want to come in flatly play it like you really don't care.
Right.
A lot of guys can do that too.
Yeah, I mean that it sounds that way then as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like you
There's
really
people like that.
Do you really want to come in and just play it like you don't care? That is I never understood that and that doesn't jive with me. It doesn't really it doesn't do.
Well, you're
anything.
A passionate player.
I am a passionate player.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've got nothing against people that aren't, and they still make a living.
Right.
It's just a different approach to music. It's a different approach to the instrument.
Right.
I could imagine that if I was to get into composing and arranging and doing this type of thing, I might want just those type of musicians to play my thing exactly the way I wrote it down.
Right.
I don't want Francisco coming here and thinking he writing a better bass part than I am. Put some fancy shit over there. I didn't write that. I don't want no fancy shit there. I know you're here, you know. But my experience has been pretty much 75% the opposite. They want me to show up.
Right. No, show up, you do. There's no doubt about that. Listen, before we before we wrap it up, I do need to bring up Solid. There's just no two ways about that.
I thought you would, so I set up the pedals.
Awesome. This is incredible. Incredible.
Okay, it took me a while. I had to dust them off, and I couldn't remember exactly the settings, so I got close to it. Let me show you guys what we got here. So you have the envelope follower, T1, which gives it the quack, quack, quack sound, right?
Right.
Now, to give it the synth sound, you need an octaver.
Of course.
Right? To give it that bottom tone. And then to get those vibratos that usually would get in a synthesizer, you have this amazing vibrato pedal here, which you can't even find anymore. I think you get one on eBay for about $400.
Of course. Yeah.
So trying to set this up. Let me see what I got here. And also to get the bite, I use a pick.
A pick, of course.
Yeah. And mute it. So
incredible.
And that's what it is.
That is it. The sound is coming in and out because of Zoom and whatnot, but I get the idea. Yeah. I believe that the audience gets the idea as well. Man, that is incredible.
And I gotta tell you why I even did that.
Okay.
So now we're in the 80s, and the drummers are losing gigs to the Lindrum machine.
Of course.
Right? Everybody's into the Lindrum machine.
Yes.
The drummers say, I'm there, right? Now people are starting to use a synth bass. The work is going, yeah. I said on the next session, I'm going to sound like the synth bass.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of these pedals because, I mess around a lot with my guitar.
Right.
So I also had a little recording studio at home. So that's how I was able to work that out. And once again, I got to hand it to Nick and Val for allowing me to do something like that. Right. And there is a Lindrum on that record. At least for the fills.
Right.
And when we were on the road, they would have somebody just play the fills on the Lindrum. They hear doo doo boo boo.
Right. Well, I mean, the sound itself, like for all these years, and I said this in the introduction to the video, for all these years, like that sound jumped at you. It didn't matter whether you were wearing, big hi-fi headphones, whether you had like a fancy stereo at home or just small, Walkman headphones. The sound just jumped at you. There was no two ways about it. And of course, I heard it all the way back in Vienna.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that's keyboard based. There's just no two ways about it. You cannot imagine what an epiphany it was when we had that text exchange and you were like, yeah, I played that.
I sent you a picture of the pedals.
I still have it.
Yeah. I'm surprised these things still work.
I mean, that is incredible. And that is, that is the thing that Buddy Williams, calls genius, and there's just no two ways about that.
I love Buddy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, his name is Buddy. He is Buddy. There's just no two ways about that.
Boy, we spent 5 months on the road with Bet. That was a trip. That was a great.
How was it? How was it back then in terms of going in and getting your sound every night? Because I mean, you know, a lot of people who are watching this know how it is to tour now. You know, you have the DI, you have the digital board,
Oh,
you
you
have
mean
all
on
of that.
tour?
Yeah, on tour. Like, how was it
Oh,
back
well,
then?
I don't know
How?
how it is. I don't know how it is with a lot of other tours. On this tour, we had the amazing Claire brothers.
Oh, check that out.
Okay, so the monitor mixes, everything was perfect the day you got to the theater. Plus, this was like a traveling Broadway show. This wasn't like concerts.
Okay.
Right? She
Okay.
had done a show called Clams on the Half Show.
Okay.
So this was we would be in every town for at least 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh, check that out.
It
Oh, I
was that
didn't.
kind of a thing. You know, it
Oh.
wasn't like tours, you know.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Like
Okay.
one night here, one night there.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, now that varies depending on the sound company you're working with. Like when we worked with Aretha, she carried her own sound man.
Okay.
But it would always be a different sound system.
Right. Right.
And there would be a different monitor guy, or sometimes you like now you have these monitor guys that come up with you and they have the wireless
Yes. Yeah.
thing on their pad and they could set you up there. Otherwise, you're yelling, more bass, less bass, turn this down, do this, you know. And then there's always when the concert starts, everything sounds different. So
totally.
you're going, you know,
I can't hear.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, on the high end tours, when they carry their own system
right.
and their own guys, those things are on the money.
Yeah. In terms of amplification, did you play different amps every night, or did you?
You know, I got used when I I don't stay really on top of all the new kind of cool amps there are.
Right.
I've always really got a really nice sound out of Galleon Kruger 400 or 800.
Of course.
That solid state amp always worked well with my jazz bass or with any bass.
Right.
But recently I've heard some really good amp. Never too crazy about the SWRs, even though they have some new ones. Trace Elliott. I'll tell you, there's one amp that I played that I really liked. As far as an amp, if I want a warm sound, I don't know if the Ashdowns.
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's what I'm playing here, right? See that Ashdown right there?
Oh wow.
This is an English amp.
Right.
I did a gig with Paul Schaefer once, and this is the amp they had, and I fell in love with it. It has a tube. You could throw in a tube.
Right.
It's got 6 EQs, and it's got well, you could throw in the lower harmonics if you want anyway. But the sound was so warm and smooth that whenever I'm doing a serious record, I always bring that amp with me.
Okay.
I said, okay, you have my direct sound, but if you want an amp sound, this is it.
This is what we're gonna use. Yeah. Of course.
It's got a real warm, ampy sound to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I like the old Galleon Krugers. I'm sure there are things now. I've played some Ampegs, some newer Ampeg solid states that also sound great.
Okay.
You know, I don't always have a choice when I do some of these gigs.
Right.
Whatever's there is there.
Yeah.
So some of these new Ampeg Pros sound really good.
Oh yeah. I got one of those. I got the SVT4 Pro, and you know, that's
really nice.
That is, you know, just like the Ashdown, a hybrid between 2 preamp solid state power amp, and you can you can adjust how much of the tube you want in the, you know, in the overall sound, and then you through the solid state you just make it louder, and I find that, you know, in terms of giving you like, I don't want to do too much, you know, product placement or anything. I'm not endorsed by any of these companies, but I find that to be, you know, really, really great.
There's another Ampeg amp. I have it in the other room. They don't even make it anymore. It's a 2-channel amp. It's called the Ampeg 800. Okay. What's great about it is it's 2 distinct channels with their own volume, their own gain, their own EQ.
Okay.
And I use that amp if I'm doing an upright gig and a regular gig.
Right.
Because it has 2 separate inputs, and I can adjust them both separately.
Right.
And it's a beautiful sounding solid state amp.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it originally came with this cabinet.
Oh,
You
check
see
that
these
out.
cabinets?
Yeah, yeah,
These
yeah, yeah.
cabinets they were very light.
Right.
Can't get them anymore. And they had a what you call it,
Uh,
a dolly you could pull up,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and the head is small, the little head small, but 800 watts and it sounds amazing.
Mm.
Matter of fact, Ampeg doesn't have a good reputation for being a quality,
Okay.
for breaking down. I had one break down, and I was able to find one online. Somebody was selling this. It was in good shape.
Okay, well, I mean that that certainly helps. There's no doubt about that. Now, I was that there's of course like an underlying reason why I'm asking you all these technical questions, and that is I want people who are listening to this hear how in depth your knowledge is of what it is that we do, right? It's very often players like you. I don't want to put myself in the same category, but let's just say players like you and me
Of course.
say again?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. Get kind of stereotyped with it just happens, when they play it just happens, or something just they pull it out of thin air, you don't have to explain anything, it just happens, stuff does not get really communicated or whatever. And I want people to hear how serious you take it and how much homework there actually is behind your playing, right? Behind the playing of a player of your status, how much thought and conceptualizing goes into the music that you put out, and and has gone into the music that you put out and continue to do. That's important too. That is an important frame of mind to understand. Like it just doesn't happen out of thin air. It's more than
I
that.
hope I've explained a lot of that, but like
Oh
I said,
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
it's also been a journey,
Of course.
It's been a journey. You you get approached with different types of music, different types of producers, different situations where you have to actually learn
Yeah.
and adjust
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, the tips I would get from Bill Eaton or John Lucien, or all these great arrangers that I've worked for.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
I guess the other thing is you have to keep a humble, open mind.
Right. Right.
To be able to absorb all this new information that you have coming.
Right. Right.
And you have to walk in with the attitude, no, I don't know everything.
Right. Right.
No, I'm a sponge here.
Right.
And I'm a musician. My real job right here is to change somebody's life for that short moment amount of time that they're listening to this music.
Right.
How am I going to do that?
Right. Right.
Am I doing this by myself? Am I playing solo? Am I part of a group?
Right.
Am I part of somebody else's vision?
Right.
Let's make music, and let's make music that somebody's gonna, you're gonna grab their attention.
Right.
And there's a message or an emotion or a feeling that comes across.
Right.
Because bottom line, that's what it is.
Right. Right. Right.
We don't turn music on to listen to a lecture about algebra or whatever. We turn the music on because we want, for that, at least for that moment in time, to alter our emotional and mental state.
Yeah. There you go.
That's your job.
Well, listen, I mean, again, like I just want to say, I'm gonna end this and bring this to a close. I want to say thank you so much, Francisco, for taking the time to talk to me today and talk to the audience today. It means the world to me. I think this is so important to hear your background, to hear your thoughts, and to hear what goes into a recording career that has now spanned how many years? It's been 30, 40 years?
Over about 46.
46, like almost 50 years. I mean, that's also why I wanted to ask you in the beginning, like, what is, you're 15 years old. I remember when I was 15 years old, and I sure as hell did not I wasn't anywhere near an instrument at the time. So, what is going through your mind?
Well, I
that
never gave you the history of before I was 15.
Well, I mean, understand that there's
Yeah.
a lot that went into that already. But
If I could be really quick about it.
yeah, of course.
So when I was in middle school, right, my
Right.
brother Hector was in, I guess, in the 7th grade, which puts me in the 5th grade. He was hanging out with a buddy of his in middle school,
Right.
by the name of Roger Simon, who had an electric guitar and played guitar, right? So after school, they would talk to 6th grade. He would go to Roger's house. Roger taught him guitar.
Right.
So my dad was trying to teach him. So my dad was a professional chef. God rest his soul. That's what he did. But he always wanted to play a musical instrument, right?
Right.
He tried to play the accordion. My mother threw it out. So he wanted a guitar. So we had a guitar in the house.
Right.
And Hector would grab the guitar. He said, look what I learned. He teach me chords. Okay, I'm in 5th grade now, right? So in the 7th grade, my brother Hector forms a band with Roger. A drummer by the name of David Lang, whose father was a percussionist for Philharmonic, for the Philharmonic Orchestra. So in short, they had a band.
Right.
Hector started writing songs. He would write these songs and he would sing lead, and the band was really popular, and I wasn't in the band, but Hector would come home and teach me the songs. Right. Anyway, long story short, a friend of mine who's a famous actor now, Robbie Benson, I don't know, he was in my class, right? I would hang out at Robbie's house. And one day Hector and I were at Robbie's house and we were singing these songs that Hector wrote. Now, Robbie Benson's father, right, was he was a songwriter, he was a comedy writer. And a friend of his was there, a guy who happened to be the musical director for Nat King Cole.
Right.
Heard us singing these songs. He says, who wrote those songs? Hector said, I wrote those songs. Long story short, he tried to sign us because he thought the music was, I was playing acoustic bass. It was like the Smothers Brothers, but we were writing rock songs. We did demos at RCA recording studios, 10 tracks. So I had been in the studio.
That's crazy.
Middle school.
Right.
You see what I mean? So getting into the recording studio wasn't, I mean, my parents, it's funny, wouldn't let us sign the contract because we were minors.
Right.
He said, oh, they have to finish school. They can't make any records. Those are Puerto Rican parents for you. So but when I'm 15 and I'm not, it's like, okay, been there, done that to a certain degree. Incredible. So it wasn't like, I'm out of nowhere, like, oh, record studio. No,
yeah. It was not totally new.
Yeah. So there was a process that went up to that point.
Right. That is incredible. That's,
Thank you so much, man. I know taking a lot of time, but
no. This is what this is here for. There's no time limit here. There's none of that. This is exactly what this is. So anyway, listen, man, I just wanted to say thank you again for taking the time. Buddy Williams just chimed in and said, see, genius. So
You're too sweet, man. I appreciate it.
No, this needs to be said. And
thank you, buddy.
Just keep doing what you're doing because we need it. And
well, I hope to see you soon. I hope we're back in the pitch soon, man.
Oh yeah. Fingers crossed that something will work out and
hope you got something out of this.
Yeah, and we can get back to making music. I'm not necessarily so worried about Broadway, but the clubs that's something that's where I'm just like, okay, I hope that they have some sort of plan because music clubs need support and need an audience and what.
And my best to your girlfriend. You guys still together?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah.
Did you get married?
No, still not married.
She's still talking to you?
Yes. This is.
It won't last.
Awesome. All right. Well,
take care, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anytime, man.
You got it. All right.
All right. Goodbye, everybody out there.
Later.
Okay.
All right, everyone out there. Let me just say what I say every week, and that is thanks for tuning in. That was the great Francisco Centeno. As I say every week, be kind, be cool, and remember we only have each other. All right, I'll see you all next week. Later.